The city streets glistened under the dim glow of late-night street lamps, reflecting the faint puddles left by an earlier drizzle. Lila Harris huddled against a cold brick wall, clutching a thin, tattered blanket around her shoulders. At just 22, she had already faced more hardships than most would endure in a lifetime. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was a teenager, her siblings scattered, and now she navigated the streets alone, seeking warmth, safety, and the bare necessities of survival. Her stomach growled softly, a reminder that her evening meal had been a meager sandwich grabbed from a convenience store hours earlier. The wind cut sharply through the alleyways, and Lila shivered, wondering where she would find shelter for the night. Every familiar building had barred doors, every hotel room beyond reach, and every friendly face seemed busy with their own lives. She pulled her blanket closer and continued her slow walk, hoping against hope for a safe corner, a kind soul, or a miracle. Fate, it seemed, had finally decided to intervene in the most unexpected way. Across the street, lights flickered in the large penthouse windows of the Carlyle Tower. Inside, Ethan Carlyle, 35, billionaire CEO and self-made tycoon, sat behind an expansive glass desk, reviewing contracts for his latest investments. His office overlooked the city skyline, its polished surfaces reflecting both wealth and precision. Ethan was disciplined, a man who trusted few, and whose life had been sculpted by ambition, calculation, and a desire to maintain control. Yet despite his carefully constructed world, there was an undercurrent of solitude, an unspoken void left by trust betrayed and connections that had faltered under the weight of wealth and expectation. He often wondered if anyone could pierce the walls he had built around himself, walls that had never been breached until tonight. A sudden commotion outside his building caught his attention. A young woman, clearly vulnerable, walked slowly along the sidewalk. She was bundled in rags, her eyes darting nervously, carrying a small bundle close to her chest. Something about her caught his gaze. Not pity, not curiosity alone, but a keen awareness, as if the universe had dropped a challenge directly into his path. Lila paused, glancing at the looming tower above her. The warmth inside the building seemed impossibly distant, yet something in the lights and the open doors suggested hope. Taking a deep, trembling breath, she approached the main entrance and hesitated. Should she dare? Could she ask a complete stranger, a man she would likely never see again, for shelter even for one night? Her courage was rooted in necessity. The chill gnawed at her, and the small bundle of belongings she had managed to gather was insufficient protection. "Please," she whispered to herself. "I just need one night." Pushing the glass doors open, she stepped into the grand lobby. The contrast was immediate. Marble floors, polished brass accents, and the quiet hum of security personnel. She hesitated, unsure how to navigate the unfamiliar space. Her eyes landed on the reception desk, where a clerk glanced up with a raised brow. I need help," Lila began, voice trembling but firm. "I have nowhere to stay tonight. Please. Anyone. A place for me, even just for a few hours." The clerk hesitated, unsure, glancing at the surveillance cameras and then back at the tall, imposing security doors behind her. I'm not sure. This is the Carlyle Tower. Usually, only residents or invited guests." Before the clerk could finish, a deep, calm voice interrupted. "And yet, here she is." Lila looked up, her heart skipping a beat. Behind her, a man had appeared from the shadows of the reception area. Ethan Carlyle. His presence was commanding, composed, yet there was a faint undercurrent of curiosity in his eyes. He studied her silently, taking in her worn coat, the bundle she clutched, and the small determination evident in her stance. I'm sorry to intrude," Lila said, her voice barely above a whisper. I have nowhere else to go. Please, just for one night." Ethan's gaze softened subtly, his analytical mind racing through possibilities. To trust a stranger was unwise, yet her sincerity, desperation, and courage created an unusual tension. There was something remarkable about her, something that made him pause, consider, and finally respond. "Follow me," he said quietly, with measured authority. We'll find a place for you tonight, but you will answer for why you are here. Lila's eyes widened in disbelief. Why you're? Ethan gave a small nod, not explaining further. The weight of his presence, his authority, and the unexpected kindness left Lila speechless. She followed him cautiously, the air thick with anticipation, uncertainty, and the cinematic tension of the improbable encounter. For Lila, this night, one she had expected to be long, cold, and lonely, was about to become a turning point. The stranger who had the power to grant her shelter was also a man who demanded truth, honesty, and courage. And in that rare combination of wealth, authority, and unspoken empathy, Lila felt the first flicker of hope she had experienced in months. Little did she know, this one night would not remain ordinary. Within hours, her life, and the perception of those around her, would change dramatically. This stranger, a billionaire with eyes that missed nothing, would see beyond her current plight, recognize her resilience, and set the stage for events that would astonish an entire town 6 months later. The lobby clock ticked silently. Outside, the city continued its relentless rhythm. Inside, a moment of destiny unfolded quietly, unassumingly, yet profoundly. Lila and Ethan had intersected, and the consequences of this night would ripple far beyond the marble floors of the Carlyle Tower. The evening had settled into a soft, ambient glow as Ethan Carlyle led Lila Harris and little Ella through the private corridors of his penthouse. The warmth inside contrasted sharply with the chill of the city streets, yet Lila remained cautious, her instincts honed by months of surviving on the streets. Every shadow, every polished surface seemed foreign and imposing, but she had no choice but to trust him. Ethan gestured toward a tastefully furnished guest room, the walls bathed in soft muted light, a small cot prepared with blankets and pillows. "This will be your space for the night," he said, voice calm yet commanding. "Ella will have a comfortable place as well. Nothing fancy, but it will keep you safe." Lila hesitated before entering, her hand tightening around the small tote bag she had carried all day. "Thank you," she murmured softly. I didn't expect not to be accommodated," Ethan finished for her, his tone neutral but with a subtle warmth. "I understand. Circumstances often force difficult choices. This is temporary, but your safety is non-negotiable tonight." Ella, sensing the tension, clung to Lila's side and gazed curiously at the elegant surroundings. "Mommy, it's so pretty here," she exclaimed, her voice innocent and full of wonder. Lila smiled faintly, ruffling the child's hair. Once the child was settled on the cot with a small plush toy, Ethan guided Lila to a quiet sitting area. "We need to discuss the arrangement," he said, his eyes meeting hers with piercing scrutiny. "I need clarity on your request, your expectations, and the boundaries you intend to set. I cannot step into a role blindly." Lila took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I'll be honest," she began. "I don't have anywhere else to go tonight. I know it's unusual, asking a stranger for shelter and to assume this temporary role for Ella. But the streets are not safe, and she deserves security, even for one night. That's why I came to you." Ethan studied her carefully, noting the steadiness in her voice despite the evident tension. "I see," he said quietly. "And what do you expect from me? How involved should I be?" Lila swallowed, her voice steady but cautious. "I just need you to be present if anyone asks, to maintain the appearance of stability and trust. You don't need to interfere beyond that. Just help me keep her safe and comfortable. That's all I ask." Ethan leaned back, evaluating her request with the precision of a man accustomed to high-stakes decisions. "Very well," he said after a pause. "I will honor this. But understand, if any complications arise, I expect full honesty. I will act in the child's best interest at all times." Lila nodded slowly, relief and apprehension mingling in her chest. She had placed her trust in a man she barely knew, yet something in his presence conveyed competence, authority, and integrity. For the first time in weeks, she felt a small measure of hope. The night unfolded quietly at first. Ethan observed from a distance as Lila prepared a simple dinner for Ella, maintaining a careful balance between involvement and respect for her space. He noted her resourcefulness, how she managed the small kitchenette efficiently, how she maintained warmth and comfort for the child, and how she quietly navigated an environment that was unfamiliar and imposing. As dinner concluded, the conversation shifted. "Tell me more about her," Ethan said quietly, breaking the silence. "Her habits, her likes, what makes her smile." Lila paused, surprised by the genuine interest. "She loves drawing," she said softly. "And reading stories. She's curious, persistent, sometimes stubborn. But she's kind, generous, and incredibly brave for her age. I worry about her constantly, and I try to shield her from the harshness of the world." Ethan nodded, listening intently, noting the depth of her protective instincts and the unspoken dedication. "I can see that," he said calmly. "And it's admirable. Few would take such responsibility so wholly. You're remarkable." Lila felt a blush rise to her cheeks. She wasn't accustomed to praise, especially from a stranger, let alone a man of such power and presence. "I'm just trying to survive and keep her safe," she replied softly. Ethan allowed a faint smile, a subtle acknowledgement rather than flattery. "Survival is important, yes. But what stands out is not merely survival, it's the way you carry responsibility, integrity, and care simultaneously. That's rare. And it deserves recognition." Later, as the night deepened, an unexpected twist tested them. A minor emergency, a loose window latch and a sudden draft, threatened to wake Ella. Lila rushed to adjust the window while Ethan instinctively moved to assist, coordinating with her silently, their actions synchronized without words. The simple, intimate cooperation revealed a mutual understanding, trust, and subtle bonding. After resolving the situation, they sat quietly in the living room. Lila observed Ethan carefully. He was composed, authoritative, yet unexpectedly gentle with the child and considerate of her role as mother and guardian. She felt a cautious sense of admiration and something unspoken, an unrecognized connection that the day had begun to forge. "Tomorrow," Ethan said finally, breaking the comfortable silence, "will be another challenge. But tonight, consider it secured. Both of you are safe, and the trust you placed in me is acknowledged." Lila nodded, feeling a mixture of relief, cautious hope, and a spark of respect for the man who had stepped into her unpredictable world. The night would be long, yet under this unusual arrangement, a fragile but promising bond had begun to take shape. As they settled down, Ethan ensured Ella was comfortable and asleep before turning to Lila. "Rest well," he said softly. "Tomorrow will be a new test, and we'll navigate it together." Lila exhaled, finally allowing herself a quiet moment of release. The night, which had begun as desperation and uncertainty, had transformed into the first step of trust, care, and the subtle beginnings of a connection that could alter the trajectory of their lives. The city outside shimmered under the moonlight, the night alive with possibilities, tension, and the unspoken promise that the events of this extraordinary day were only the beginning. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Ethan Carlyle's penthouse, painting the walls in muted gold. Lila stirred, Ella nestled against her side, still half asleep. The previous night had been surreal. She had never imagined that a single night of desperation would place her under the roof of a billionaire CEO. Yet the events of the night had begun to shift her perception. Ethan was not only powerful but remarkably perceptive, careful, and subtly protective. After breakfast, Ethan invited them to sit in the living area. His demeanor remained calm, controlled, yet there was a faint warmth in his eyes, a quiet acknowledgement of the extraordinary circumstances that had brought them together. "I want to ensure this day is comfortable for both of you," he said quietly. "Ella's needs come first, and your safety is paramount." Lila nodded, a mixture of cautious relief and curiosity filling her. "I appreciate that," she said softly, adjusting the blanket around Ella. "I didn't expect this level of care or understanding." Ethan allowed a small smile. Observation, careful attention, and understanding character are not optional for me. But yesterday, your actions demonstrated qualities I rarely witness: honesty, courage, and resilience. As the day unfolded, Ethan and Lila navigated a series of social and professional errands designed to maintain appearances for the community that would notice them. From brief introductions at charitable events to subtle engagements with people who could easily question the unusual circumstances, every interaction was carefully managed. Ella, now fully awake and curious, moved with boundless energy, her small hands tugging at Lila's and occasionally reaching toward Ethan. Each time, he responded instinctively, bending to her level, ensuring her comfort, and projecting calm authority. Lila observed him closely, noting how naturally he adapted to the role of a temporary guardian. His movements were precise yet gentle, commanding respect without intimidation. Mid-morning brought a challenge. A local reporter recognized Ethan and approached, questioning the unusual duo. Lila froze, fearing exposure and scandal. Ethan stepped forward, his voice calm, authoritative, and precise. "I am accompanying the child today on behalf of her guardian," he explained. "Everything is accounted for and under supervision." The reporter, sensing the sincerity and authority in Ethan's demeanor, nodded and moved on. Lila exhaled quietly, a mixture of relief and admiration washing over her. This man, initially a stranger, had proven not only competent but empathetic, protective, and trustworthy. During a quiet moment in the afternoon, Lila finally allowed herself to speak candidly. "I never expected anyone to understand," she admitted softly. "I've had to survive alone for so long, make decisions constantly, and protect this child without support. Your willingness to step in, it means more than you might realize." Ethan's expression softened, his sharp eyes reflecting subtle appreciation. "It means a lot to witness integrity in action," he said quietly. "You've demonstrated care, resourcefulness, and a sense of responsibility few possess. That is why I agreed to be here today." A minor incident tested their trust. Ella tripped slightly near a fountain, spilling part of her snack. Lila gasped, rushing forward instinctively. Ethan mirrored her actions, reaching out and steadying the child, a fluid, synchronized motion. Their eyes met briefly, a silent acknowledgement of mutual capability and reliability. "See, you're perfectly capable," Ethan said gently, his tone both reassuring and validating. Lila felt a quiet thrill. This man's recognition of her competence was unprecedented. By late afternoon, subtle bonds had formed. Lila observed how Ethan anticipated Ella's needs, responded to unexpected challenges, and maintained a balance of authority and care. His presence was not intrusive but deliberate, measured, attentive, and quietly empowering. Lila felt a mixture of gratitude, admiration, and a flicker of intrigue. The day's climax approached as a community charity function required them to interact with dozens of influential figures. Lila's nerves rose. Any misstep could unravel the delicate trust and protection established throughout the day. Ethan, sensing her tension, placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. "We'll manage it together," he said, calm, authoritative, and supportive. The event unfolded successfully. Lila and Ethan navigated the crowd with seamless coordination. When questions arose regarding the unusual arrangement, Ethan provided subtle but compelling explanations that preserved both dignity and discretion. Lila's relief was palpable. She realized that the stranger she had approached out of desperation had become an anchor in the most unpredictable of circumstances. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the city in shades of amber, Lila reflected on the day. The initial act of vulnerability, asking a billionaire for temporary help, had blossomed into trust, competence, and recognition. The child's safety had been ensured, the social stakes had been managed, and a quiet bond had formed between her and Ethan, one founded on respect, observation, and the unspoken acknowledgement of character. The day closed with subtle anticipation. Lila knew tomorrow would bring new challenges, but the foundation had been laid. Ethan's presence was no longer a temporary anomaly. It was a deliberate, conscious support that respected her autonomy, acknowledged her resilience, and hinted at the possibility of deeper connection. And as they left the event, hand in hand, the city lights reflecting off wet streets, Lila sensed that this night, beginning in desperation, was the first step toward transformation, recognition, and a story that would astonish the town in the months to come. The city streets were alive with the golden hue of early evening, reflecting off the glass skyscrapers and wet pavements. Lila Harris walked briskly beside Ella, each step measured, each glance alert. The previous months had been a delicate balance, managing life after homelessness, caring for Ella, and navigating the strange connection that had formed with Ethan Carlisle, the billionaire who had allowed them a safe place for one night. Today was the culmination of months of cautious interaction. Lila had maintained her independence while accepting guidance, support, and occasional oversight from Ethan. Their relationship, born of necessity, had evolved into one of mutual respect, subtle trust, and an undercurrent of unspoken curiosity. They approached a charitable community event organized to honor acts of courage, kindness, and resilience within the town. Lila's heart pounded. She had been selected to receive recognition, but the stakes were higher than she had imagined. Public exposure, scrutiny, and the presence of influential figures could easily overwhelm both her and Ella. Ethan, ever observant, fell into step beside them, projecting calm authority. "Remember," he said quietly, "every action, every gesture should feel natural. We are here for her safety and for authenticity. Nothing more, nothing less." Lila nodded, steadying her nerves. "I'll do my best," she murmured. As they entered the hall, murmurs swept through the crowd. Many recognized Ethan Carlisle, the billionaire philanthropist known for his calculated decisions and rarely seen in public outside business circles. The attendees' curiosity heightened as they noticed the young woman and child with him. Lila felt the tension spike, unsure how she would be perceived. The first test came immediately. An event organizer approached, questioning the sudden appearance of the child and her companion. Lila felt her stomach knot with anxiety. Ethan stepped forward calmly, his posture authoritative yet non-threatening. "I am accompanying the child today on behalf of her guardian. Everything is arranged to ensure her comfort, security, and privacy," he explained. His voice carried a mixture of authority and warmth that instantly diffused the tension. Lila exhaled quietly, impressed. The same man who had appeared as a stranger on a rainy street months ago now navigated complex social dynamics effortlessly, protecting her and Ella while maintaining composure. The ceremony began, and Lila was invited to the stage. She felt a brief wave of hesitation, but Ethan's reassuring presence steadied her. The event was designed to showcase the resilience of individuals who had overcome adversity, and her story, from homelessness to survival, was now being recognized. As Lila spoke, describing her challenges and determination to protect Ella, she noticed Ethan's gaze, calm but attentive, evaluating her words, actions, and composure. His presence was grounding, a subtle reminder that someone in the room truly understood the gravity of her journey. A sudden twist occurred. A journalist attempted to sensationalize her story, casting it in a potentially exploitative light. Lila froze, but Ethan reacted instantly. He intercepted, speaking with authority and clarity, reframing her story accurately, emphasizing courage, integrity, and resilience. The crowd responded with admiration rather than curiosity or judgment. Ella, sensing the subtle tension, clung to Lila's hand, giggling innocently. Lila smiled faintly, realizing that despite the high stakes, the child's trust remained intact, a testament to both her guidance and Ethan's careful support. The ceremony concluded with applause, handshakes, and quiet whispers of admiration. Lila had survived the public scrutiny, maintained dignity, and demonstrated that courage and integrity could command respect, even in a world quick to judge. As they stepped outside, the evening sky deepened into a soft indigo, stars beginning to twinkle above. Ethan spoke quietly, his voice measured but sincere. You've navigated today with grace, responsibility, and courage. It was a test of character, and you have exceeded every expectation. Lila's chest tightened, emotion coursing through her. I couldn't have done it without your help, she admitted. Ethan shook his head slightly. It was never just about helping. It was about recognizing integrity, observing courage, and allowing it to flourish. That's what today demonstrated. For the first time, Lila realized that the man who had been a stranger, a temporary guardian, and a silent observer had become someone who acknowledged her worth, respected her independence, and subtly shifted the course of her life. The day ended quietly, cinematic in its subtlety. The child safe and happy, the mother recognized, and the billionaire who had once been a stranger now intertwined in their journey, an unexpected yet transformative presence. The city glimmered in the night, and Lila, holding Ella close, felt a sense of hope and anticipation. 6 months had reshaped their lives, and the town that would soon witness their story had no idea how extraordinary the journey had been. 6 months had passed since that extraordinary night when Lila Harris, desperate and vulnerable, had sought shelter in the penthouse of Ethan Carlisle, the billionaire CEO who had agreed to host her and little Ella for just one night. That single act, born of necessity, had set in motion a chain of events that would astonish not just Lila and Ethan, but the entire town. The morning light spilled across the quiet streets, illuminating a city that had changed subtly, unaware of the profound transformations happening within its hearts. Lila, now dressed neatly and carrying Ella's small hand, approached the town square. Today, she was not the same homeless girl from months ago. Her resilience, courage, and intelligence had garnered recognition, and her life had been quietly rebuilt with dignity and respect. Ethan walked beside her, calm and composed as ever, yet his eyes held a warmth previously unseen in their earlier encounters. The city had begun to notice the quiet ripple of change he had helped facilitate. Lila had been offered opportunities, support, and a platform, not through charity alone, but through the recognition of her integrity and resourcefulness. The town square was abuzz with curiosity. A small crowd had gathered, drawn by whispers of a remarkable story. A young woman who had emerged from hardship, carrying her child with strength and poise, standing beside the billionaire who had once been a stranger. Cameras clicked, townsfolk whispered, and the air was thick with anticipation. Lila's heart raced as she adjusted Ella's bow, watching the expressions of admiration and awe. Yet, even amidst the attention, she felt grounded. The events of the past 6 months had taught her resilience, patience, and the quiet power of integrity. She could navigate public scrutiny without fear, and she could protect Ella with calm authority. Ethan guided them to the center of the square, his presence commanding yet discreet. "Today," he said quietly so only Lila could hear, "is about recognition of courage, integrity, and the quiet strength that shapes lives. Not just yours but hers as well." Lila nodded, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. She glanced at Ella, whose eyes sparkled with innocent wonder. The child's laughter rang out, cutting through the murmurs and camera clicks, a reminder of the stakes, the joy, and the lives at the center of this story. The mayor stepped forward, presenting a small plaque commemorating the courage, perseverance, and ingenuity Lila had demonstrated. "This young woman," he announced, "has faced extraordinary challenges with grace, courage, and intelligence. She has not only safeguarded her child but inspired all of us with her resilience." The crowd erupted in applause. Lila's eyes filled with tears, not for herself, but for the journey she had endured, the struggles overcome, and the hope that had been restored. Ethan's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, a silent acknowledgement of the extraordinary person she was. Later, in a quieter corner, Ethan spoke with measured warmth. "Lila, you've not only survived, you've transformed. The town, your child, and even I have witnessed the extraordinary strength you carry. I hope you understand what that means." Lila smiled faintly, her voice soft. "I never expected recognition, or help like this. I only wanted to survive and protect Ella. But, it's more than I imagined." Ethan nodded, a subtle admiration in his eyes. Sometimes the world only sees what courage and integrity allow it to see. Today it saw yours. And it will not forget. Ella tugged at Lila's hand, pointing excitedly at a small ice cream stand. "Mommy, can we?" she asked. Lila laughed softly, relief and joy mingling. "Yes, baby. We can." As the three of them walked through the square, hand in hand, the town's whispers followed them. Not judgmental, not mocking, but filled with respect, wonder and astonishment. The homeless girl who had once been invisible had become a symbol of resilience, courage, and transformation. Ethan glanced at Lila, his gaze steady and deliberate. "This isn't the end of your journey," he said quietly. "It's only the beginning. And I'm glad to have witnessed it." Lila met his eyes, a quiet acknowledgement of trust and mutual respect. "Neither did I," she whispered. The city lights shimmered on the wet streets, echoing the brilliance of the moment. Lila had reclaimed her dignity, Ella was safe and joyful, and Ethan, the stranger-turned ally, had ensured that one night of desperate trust had transformed lives in ways that no one, including the town, could have imagined. The story concluded with cinematic grace. A homeless girl's courage, a billionaire's discernment, a child's innocence, and a town's astonishment, woven together in a narrative of trust, perseverance, and the extraordinary impact of a single act of kindness.